Good afternoon. Good to see a few people still left after a long day. I'm going to talk about Nueva Esperanza and the rediscovery of Chimberos. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge all the people that have gone before me, have worked on the Esperanza system, and some of them are in this room. And they'll have to forgive me if I make a few historical errors about how we got to Esperanza and how we end up rediscovering Chimberos. And I mention that in sincerity because this deposit, or this group of deposits, was discovered quite a long time ago. And this is an example of the sorts of things that can happen in a country like Chile, where a project discovered then gets rediscovered and then gets rediscovered again as technology or interest advance. In this talk, I'm going to break into three sections. First of all, I'm just going to talk about Kingsgate, and then I'm going to discuss some of the historical basis of the Esperanza system and the geology, and then I'm going to go on to the rediscovery, if you like. Kingsgate Consolidated has been around for about 20 years. It's a gold producer with its main interests in Thailand at the Chatri gold mine, which is an epithermal system. It also mines gold in South Australia, underground, high-grade underground operation, and Nueva Esperanza is its flagship development project. I mentioned it's been around a while. Kingsgate has been involved in Chile in the past, has been involved in Argentina and Peru, and but now it's making a very serious effort to get into Latin America, with Esperanza being its flagship project. Kingsgate is an Australian-listed company, about 150 million market cap, and we now have a new CEO who is reinvigorating the company with new ideas. He's been out in Chile many times. He's very keen to develop our footprint in Chile. So we're going to be starting a new business development cycle and start looking at gold and other types of deposits. There we go. This is a summary of the project itself, for those that can read it. Nueva Esperanza is fully owned by Laguna Resources Chile, which is a subsidiary of Kingsgate. The property is focused on the old Esperanza system, which is a high sulfidation epithermal located in the northern Maricunga. What's interesting about the Maricunga is that for a belt that's been that was discovered over 30 years ago, there's a remarkably little work that's been done in the northern sector where we are since the 1980s. And I guess that's highlighted by Goldfield's discovery of Salares Norte, which is a pretty interesting sort of deposit with high-grade intercepts. Everybody knows about La Coipa, but that's about the only thing that ever appears on metallogenic maps. As you know, La Coipa is on care and maintenance at the moment, but there's still a lot of ore left in that project. The Esperanza system was discovered in 1981 by ANCOM, which was a joint venture between Anglo-American and Cominco at the time. It's been fragmented, it's been explored in bits, it's been mined in bits. We acquired it in 2009, well, we acquired the Akeris deposit in 2009 from Anglo-American, and then later on, with Kingsgate behind us, we acquired the rest of the system and re-established Esperanza, hence its name Nueva Esperanza, to make a difference from some other projects around. We wrapped up a feasibility study in 2012 based on the Akeris deposit as an agitation leach. Technically, that worked very well. The economics weren't so good, with capital costs in the country skyrocketing at the time. We acquired water, access to water. We've got power options. We did another DFS as a heap leach operation to bring down the capital and operating costs. That was technically and economically successful, except the silver price collapsed. But we've still carried on working on the project, and we have found out some interesting things about a year ago. This is a Google Earth photograph. Before Google Earth, we had colour photographs. The point of this slide is to show you how the Esperanza system stands out against the background of volcanics. It's a large system. We're talking 100 square kilometres. There are 12 mineralised centres on the system, which one would think is a great idea, but it also makes it very hard to explore. This is typical Maricunga landscape, very subdued topography, big hills. This slide, in this slide here, these little white things here, and I have copies of this presentation if people are really interested, are different mineralised centres on the property. As I mentioned, there are at least 12 known, and we're starting to find the unknowns. I divide the historical element, the exploration development of the system over the last 30 years into three periods. The first period, which is from 1981 to about 1987, is this period of discovery and exploration. This is when Anglo-American, with its partners, worked on the Esperanza system as part of a greater thrust into the Maricunga. Most people know of Maricunga deposits like Siricasali, Caspice, Mate Lobo. These were all discovered by Anglo-American, and of course Esperanza in the north. This period of discovery and exploration finished in 1987 with the building of the Mate gold mine and the push into gold. Esperanza, being a silver-based system, was put on in suspension. Then things went haywire. Mate didn't quite achieve what it was supposed to, and Anglo-American stepped away from gold at that stage. And then we went from basically 1990 until 2010, we're in a period of fragmentation. The Chimberos deposit, which had been discovered and established as a high-grade silver system, was sold to the Montesero, the Locoipa partners. The greater part of Esperanza was optioned off to Orvana Hemlo joint venture, and they put a lot of drill holes in there. Then during the, for a number of reasons, I'm not sure what, but they pulled out in the late 90s, handed the properties back to Anglo-American. In 1998, Chimberos was mined by Locoipa. At that period, Chimberos was the world's richest silver mine. They produced 32 million ounces of silver in 13 months. And that today is equivalent to about 600,000 ounces of gold equivalent. The Arqueros deposit was leased to Minera Cancan, who mined it as a high-grade underground operation. In the meantime, Montesero took over the rest, acquired the Esperanza system from Anglo-American, except for Arqueros. We came on the scene in 2008, 2009, acquired Arqueros, and then with Kingsgate we acquired the rest of the system from Kinross. Hence, we have a period of consolidation that started in 2010 and 2011. In this consolidation, the Nueva Esperanza era, we've put this project through its paces, and we have completed a feasibility study on the property, and we're now looking for some new advancements. Okay, this is just a quick summary of the history of exploration. As I mentioned earlier, it was discovered in the early 1980s by effectively the ANCOM joint venture with MAC as operator, and leading roles with Bernstein and Thompson. Dick Silito was involved. The project was led basically by Bob Belisle, Enrique Viteri, and Tomas Vila. Enrique was telling me the other day that they discovered Chimberos. All there was on the hill was a big chunk of silica about the size of a Volkswagen. They took a piece of it, ran it several hundred grams per ton silver, and that basically started the interest in the system. I have over here, we have a copy of the geochemical map that was produced by published by Thomas Wheeler in 1991. And what's very interesting about this map is that these big anomalies in the middle related to small outcrops of silicified rock with a little bit of gold and silver. It's very, very unusual. The actual Chimberos anomaly up here is quite small. This is a photograph I took in 1988 when I first came out to Chile of the Arqueros deposit. So, how big is the system? Well, what we know today, about 1 million ounces of gold equivalent have been mined from the system. And I mentioned Chimberos itself. The head grade was at 5 grams a ton gold equivalent, which is about 300 grams silver. Arqueros, they were running at 7 grams gold equivalent. And then we've basically proven up about 2 million ounces of gold equivalent in the last few years. So what we're looking at in terms of what's been mined and what we have now put into resources is a 3 million ounce system. The double X's along here represent material that we know exists, mineralized outcrops, drill intercepts that we have not evaluated. It also includes the Carachitas porphyry gold deposit, which is on the property, which could have up to maybe another 3 or 4 million ounces. So what we're really dealing with on the Esperanza system is quite a large system of mixture of epithermals and porphyries that's never really been comprehensively explored by anyone, and certainly not in recent times. If this was discovered today and hadn't been partially mined by different people, it would represent a significant discovery that would support a mining operation in its own right. I mean, if we look at this 2 million ounces, that's just less than 2 grams a ton gold. That's quite a lot of gold to be lying around, well, silver mainly. It's a little bit of geology here. The alteration system is basically epithermals that have been emplaced in a series of Miocene pyroclastics overlying a late Paleozoic basement which is exposed in the northeast of the property. A bit of geological mapping has actually shown that these are not uplifted blocks, but this is actually a basement over which the rest of the property of the Miocene lies. We have a series of northeast defining structures with cross structures which carry the gold mineralization in a belt through here and this belt through here. This is where the Chimberos discovery, its gold discovery, our rediscovery has occurred. This area, this belt through here, is yet to be explored. In terms of alteration, we're dealing high sulfidation, buggy, massive quartz, not a lot of clay about. I want to get a spectrometer up there at some stage to see what we can work with. We have 4 types of mineralization styles. These are all, of course, coming from the same source. We have a mantis type of silver, which is hosted in the Miocene, effectively in flat-lying lapilli tuffs, which have been replaced. We have quite a lot of little vein gold deposits scattered around the place along these structures. Some of them are very high grade. We've had intercepts up to 200 grams, but most of them are sitting 1 or 2 grams. We have hydrothermal breccias up in the Paleozoic, which is where the Chimberos system is based. And of course down here, we have a porphyry gold deposit. In terms of ore mineralogy, and that's a favorite of mine, silver's interesting. Up in here, a lot of people look at silver and they shudder. We don't have silver sulfides. We don't have metallic silver. What we have are silver halides. It's a salt. For those that are not mineralogically inclined, it's the same stuff you put on your steak, except it's got silver instead of sodium. And one of the effects of silver chloride, it's highly soluble in cyanide. And this is quite an advantage metallurgically for us. The gold, of course, occurs as metallic material and some as electrum. And underlying parts of this deposit, we don't know how much is underlain by this, but we certainly know in the Paleozoic we have the sulfide system. It's gold and copper, a lot of arsenic about. We haven't done a lot of drilling on it because of the arsenic issue, but it's an interesting deposit to look for in the future, This is just a quick rundown on the three main deposits which are scheduled for mining. We have the Kingsgate deposit. If you go up there, you'll see these big bluffs here. This is where the mantos intercepts the outcrops, actually, intercepts the surface. In cross-section, it's a long, flat squash sausage cut by a series of sheeted, what we originally called veins, but in fact they're not, they're ledges. These are feeder zones. These are large silicified structures, and they contain gold within them. The mantos is mainly silver. Teterita in the north, interesting deposit. It's basically a white hill. It's got a little bit of silica on top. Very little stripping to be done, and what we're dealing with here is high-grade silver, and we're talking several hundred grams in places, locked in massive silica. That's going to be an easy one to mine. We have had a lot of adventures to getting into these things. We have done pits and we have drilled them. And again, we're dealing with silver salts. Chimberos, which of course is the most interesting of the lot because of the bonanza grades that have occurred in Chimberos. Again, we're dealing with the same style of mineralization, high sulfidation. But in this case, whereas in the mantos deposit in Teterita and Kingsgate were deposited placed in tertiary pyroclastics, flat-lying, here we have gently folded Paleozoic rocks. We have conglomerates and sandstones, we have mudstones, and the same mineralization that occurs in the other deposits has formed a breccia in here. These are hydrothermal breccias, and this is a picture of the pit. The hardness of the rock is quite clear. That pit wall, which is pretty clean, has been standing there for 15 years. The high-grade silver here is associated with a little bit of hematite, whereas in the mantos, we're dealing mainly with jarosite. One of the things we picked up when we acquired Chimberos, of course, is a camp, truck workshop. We have very good facilities up there. Well, moving on in time. Okay, so this is the model, and I'm not going to spend any time on that because I want to flick through to the exploration, what we did. Last year, about this time, we decided to do some condemnation drilling to wrap up the project after the feasibility study. We drilled off the side of the Chimberos pit in an area which had never had any drill holes in the past. And what we found was high-grade gold. And this, you won't be able to see this, but we've got intercepts up to 50 grams a ton gold in here. In that 6-month period of drilling, we drilled about 15,000 meters. We picked up 300,000 of gold. And that's gold, not gold equivalent. It's high grade. It's changed the whole perspective of the property. It's coarse. And this is the area where it's occurring off the side of this pit. Not one drill hole, not one condemnation hole in the past. So now we're chasing things. We hadn't any geology. There's no outcrop. We brought in geophysics, we picked up the structures, we brought in some structural mapping specialists, we did IP work, we did mag work, and we basically found this whole system of gold. In the past you've had this silver system from Chimberos, high grade, we're talking hundreds of grams of silver and hydrothermal breccias. Now we have high grade gold, we're talking tens of grams and hydrothermal breccias off the side. And what's important about this for us, go through here, what does it all mean, is that after 30 years of exploration, we can still get surprises out of this property. This gold mineralization that was discovered has not been seen on this property before. We now go back and we relook at all of the gold veins in the property. We go back to basics, we go back to mapping, we go back to using geophysics. We go back to doing everything again to find out whether this discovery is unique or not. Now, you say, well, what's the chances of finding another 300,000 ounces of high-grade gold? Well, we didn't think there was any chance of finding it before. So we're now looking for the same again. Down in the bottom in the south here, we have a valley through there. We've picked up some very high-grade gold breccias. So again, we're looking at, we're remodeling, we're reinterpreting the geology. We're looking at key areas like Paleozoic, where these breccias tend to occur. Now that's the significance of rediscovering something that nobody had really seen before. And I said it's a rediscovery because things had been found here before and forgotten about or not followed up. The other part of it, apart from the geology, it has to change our perspectives on the metallurgy. We've done a feasibility study before. Now we're looking at re-engineering. We have to go back to an agitation leach. There's quite a lot of extra work. And the other part of it is to go back and rethink about the Northern Maracunga, where apart from where Solares Norte has shown that there's potential to find hidden high-grade deposits, we've found high-grade deposits on our property. There's still a lot of mineralization up there that hasn't been explored and really needs to be attended to. And that's the end of this presentation. Thank you.